So E, are you stoked? Have
I
you been
am
watching
very,
the
I'm
card?
very excited. Yeah, no, this is great.
Good morning, Bitcoin, and welcome back to Adventures in NFTs. I'm your host, Thomas Hunt, and today we're joining the Curio Cards Plus launch. Already
trying to
in
get-
progress
Yeah, I'm
on
trying to get Max
Clubhouse.
on stage there.
Okay.
We're also going to start a Twitter Spaces room here. So we're going to be on YouTube, Twitter, Clubhouse, all the places talking about the new Curio Cards
I hope
Plus.
Luis makes it
So
too.
just stand by as we
Luis,
attempt to get
it's 3:30 in the morning in the Philippines. We spoke to him like 5 hours ago, so I hope he caught a nap. I don't know. And I was watching Thomas's interview that popped up today with Crypto Pop on World Crypto Network. That was very fun. Tom, you there?
Hey guys, sorry,
Hi,
I've
Matt.
never used Club before. I'm trying to figure this all out, so
Sure.
please bear with me. It's pretty straightforward. I think I got it.
That's good. We're also forgiving because everybody knows you have that little party hat on. You have it for the first week that you're on Clubhouse.
What does that even mean?
Well, that means you're new, so people won't treat you meanly like you're a pro. Like, you're supposed to know how to do this, and you're like, no, I'm still learning. It's like, be nice, be nice.
Well, yeah, thanks
Yo,
for
I'm
bearing with
feeling-
me, though.
I'm feeling the hat in your photo, man. That's live. The hat and the shades, Thomas.
Mad Bitcoins, are you there? If you are speaking, you're on mute.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, great. How you doing?
What is up, man?
Doing good. We're live on YouTube and Twitter and trying to do a Twitter space, but I can't seem to figure out how to do it on desktop.
Okay. We're live on YouTube, too?
I think so.
Oh, okay. Cool. Well, I saw your poll, and
Which
I don't
one,
know. I love
which one,
this, but
which one is your favorite, Rick? We have to know.
I saw your
look at it
poll,
like-
and well, I think of it like children or wine. You like all of them, or if it's a vintage of wine, you like all of them. So I like all of them. I want to buy all of them.
And Max, which one's your favorite?
Oh man, I like all of them. I don't have a favorite.
Well, my favorite is orange, which is Max's card. So I'm a homer here. I'm sticking with card number 33. Eric, what about you? Which new Curio card is your favorite?
To be honest with you, I have not had sufficient opportunity to dive in and say that there's one that I definitively like. But I love the concept. I love everything that you guys are working on here. I think it's phenomenal. And I look forward to learning more about it and seeing this thing evolve.
JW, what about you? Will you pick a favorite? Sounds very quiet. I'm sure he's agreeing with me that card 33 is the best. Parker, what about you? Do you have a favorite?
I like number. I was just looking at it. 33 is the color coin. That's my favorite number.
See,
so it's not
33. It's a
33.
complete
Not
sweep.
33.
Now we're joined by
No,
Daniel.
not that
Daniel,
one.
the artist of
It's
card
not.
number 32. Daniel, what is it like to be swept right here off the stage by card 33?
I've always liked silver better than gold. So, it's
Love
okay.
Love it.
So they're all
Or you should say it's
cool.
platinum. It's platinum. Platinum and gold. Both precious, ultra precious metals.
Well, if we had ranked choice voting, you could still be mayor. So there's always hope.
Well, Tom, I think you're also picking the orange because it matches your glasses.
It's also a very strong Bitcoin orange. You got to like that. We kind of have a bit of a competition here with the Curio cat and his Ethereum kerchief. And then
Yeah, I like
card
the
number
cat.
33.
That's
It's
the one I
kind
like
of
the cat.
it's like a Bitcoin versus Ethereum. And Daniel's card is describing the conflict, right? The mitochondrial conflict between the two.
There you go.
I like the
Very-
cat because the characters are cool, and then they have like a lot of utility. When you have characters, you can like do stuff with them.
Yeah, I agree. I think the
There's-
cat could be a foundation for a new animated show. My brother informed me that's the way we have to think now. He said that CryptoPunks and Me Bits are both TV shows now. So why not us? We've got great characters.
No, for sure, like anime style. Absolutely.
Here's one other thing. Just seeing the three, black and white, kind of like goes with everything. It can mediate between color schemes that are very different because both of the pieces have very nice colors and use of light. And then that's something that doesn't really. I mean, if you do photo real drawing, it's going to be there, but that's not kind of the.
I do agree. I think it's a great contrast, the three new pieces. I have them all up on the screen right now on YouTube. And 31 with its golden number and animated cartoon cat, 32 with kind of a like a vortex, like a tunnel. You can see kind of some three-dimensional action in there. And then 33 with the buildings and the colors. And it very much like what I like about card number 33 too, when I look at it, it seems like there's a bit of a future in that tie-dyed corner. It's like anything, any kind of new card could be coming out of that corner, and I like that idea.
Well, while we wait for people in the audience, maybe just do a quick intro of what this room is. People on the stage, obviously, everyone's connected, but for folks in the audience who may be wondering what you have entered, Curio Plus was formed to continue and carry the original Curio cards ethos into 2021. And so the team is thrilled to bring the OG, many of the original OG band members back together again. And there are some folks who unfortunately are not able to be here. So this is not an all-inclusive list, although it is an august one. But in keeping with their original mission, Curio Plus is committed to helping emerging NFT artists leverage what they've done and navigate this amazing space. They've got this brilliant project, which we'll get into in a minute. But the purpose of this room is to introduce everyone who's here to the remarkable talent that's on stage, as well as the founding team members of Curio Cards who are also here and have been so given to the community. Rick Chan, Thomas Hunt, and J.W. Kim. So I think the best thing is just get right into it, given who we have here, and maybe we'll bring more people in. But sometimes slow begets slow. Rick, do you want to sort of kick it off and give a high level of what's going on right now?
Yeah, sure. I mean, basically what happened was, first of all, feel very lucky, blessed, and humble, to get our original project rediscovered after 4 years when it was kind of, we were too early. So that happened. And then it was kind of in March and April that, people started pinging the original Curio Card founding team, but also the artists, saying, hey, it was your original mission to have multiple sets of 30. Will you do this? And so we were exploring it, and then we decided to do it. And then the whole Christie's thing happened, so we delayed our launch just because we didn't want to take away from the buzz of Christie's with Curio Cards. So, and that's why we're launching now post. But this has been in the works since April this year, so it's been 7 months going, and we're very excited to continue the journey and work with the OGs, and then over time to bring in additional lesser known artists. But here today we want to celebrate the work that they've done, which is amazing. And I'm sure I'm biased when I say that, but hopefully the community will like it too. But I mean, already they are selling, and very, very excited, and look forward to this journey. But I think we have to pay respect to the artist, because that's what it's all about.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And Thomas, what's your sort of high level for people who are down in the audience who may not necessarily be familiar with everything? We'd love to hear from you as you know the original CEO of Curio Cards. Incredible journey to this point. Love your thoughts on that as it leads into this, and this as it relates to what's gonna happen going forward.
Well, sure. When we first started Curio Cards, there wasn't a template for what an NFT was. We had to kind of invent this idea of a blockchain collectible. So when we took it to Rhett, the programmer, he had to just make his own choices about what these Curio Cards were going to be. So we launched them, and we had shows like this on YouTube. And about the same, we'd kind of get out there and we'd say, hey, we made some new cards. Does anyone want to buy them? And there's these great shows with Travis and I trying to pitch each one of these cards to the audience. And in 2017, with our blockchain collectibles, we were just too early. There wasn't anyone to buy them except really our friend Robeck. Our friend Robeck loved the cards. He made art to support us. He made fan art, and then he made cards number 21, 22, and 23. So we were always indebted to Robeck's support. But other than Robeck and Moon and Kian and a couple of early people, we didn't have a big support in the beginning. And then, like you said, the project kind of drifted apart. We went on to work for other companies. Rhett went on to other jobs. Like we got business and stuff. So, but then 4 years later, these NFTs start taking off, and I'm like, I'm a little hurt at first. I'm like, I remember those. We made some really early ones of those, and I kind of thought that if they were real, people would really like our early ones, right? I was like, eventually, somehow, this big mass of people that started collecting these blockchain collectibles, like I always thought, like I liked collecting things. I have baseball cards and posters and movies and music and records and all this kind of stuff. And I understand what it's like to, complete your set of something or to have an incomplete set. And I think all these NFTs kind of scratch that itch a little bit. So I was just sitting out there. I was like, when are they going to find Curio cards? When are they going to find Curio cards? And somehow somebody happened on that vending machine, and they were like, I think there's still some cards in here. It's kind of like they're shaking it. And they're like, I wonder what's inside. And they sent their Ethereum in, they got cards. And instead of just buying them all, and I love this about the Curio Cards community, instead of buying them all, they told other people that they could also buy them, and they kind of shared the wealth. And sure, I'm sure a lot of people bought some early cards, but they shared it. And then it came onto our radar, and they started the Discord and the community and the wrapper, and they made it so that you could buy and sell them. And eventually, somehow that attracted Christie's, and it was just so cool to see it in Christie's and have that big sale. And for the co-founder of Ethereum, I'm gonna mess his name, Taylor Gehring, I think. I'm pretty close. For him to purchase it was just a real thrill, and it was really cool. But the whole time, when we'd started the original cards, our goal was to make 100 of them as a test. And we made the first 30, and people were already pretty burnt out. They're telling me, we don't want to make any more cards. We want to do other stuff, and we want to go talk to VCs and that kind of thing. So we kind of stopped making cards, and that was not really my choice. I wanted to keep making cards. So I'm really glad that we're making cards again. And like Rick said, while we are starting with the familiar Curio artists here, Luis, Crypto Pop, Daniel Friedman, and Marisol Vengas, what this gives us now that we're making new cards, not only are there affordable cards that you can get as Curio cards, which has become a problem recently. You just can't get any affordable Curio cards below like $1,000. Also, we have the opportunity to bring new artists in. And that's what the original program and the original idea was about. It wasn't supposed to be just artists that I knew, my friends and stuff. It was supposed to branch out to the wider world. And especially in the world you look at now, sure, there's lots of ways for artists to make their own NFTs, and I support that 100%. But if the artists could work together in kind of a magazine format where they each give out a couple of pieces as Curio Cards Plus every once in a while, get that advertising, work together with other artists, I think we can spread the word about cool NFTs, and people that want to collect them. I think it's a great place to start. So I think it's a really exciting project, and I hope people will stay tuned and keep a track of what we're up to.
Beautiful, beautiful. This is a question for you and for Rick, and then we'll get to the artist. I'm new to the space, and I would say I'm like an advanced beginner, or maybe an intermediate beginner, or maybe a beginner beginner. But my observation is I love it, and as an artist, I think it represents so multi-dimensional opportunities. One of the things that's still sort of, I don't want to say bedevils me, but I really do think it's important is scaling the casual buyer, what would be the casual buyer in other marketplaces. And I'd love to capture your thoughts because onboarding people into the space is different from getting from where we are right now, which is still early adopters, to mass adoption. And I would love your thoughts, Thomas and Rick, on what you guys are doing. And I mean the people who would buy collectibles but are semantically stonewalled when they hear NFT. There's that semantic disconnect. And I'm not casting aspersions. It's a challenge to be overcome. But I think there's a much greater universe of people out there who could go on Mintable, say, with their Visa and bid on stuff, but they don't even know about it, or they think it's just too hard. I don't want to deal. I'm not into crypto. I don't have a wallet. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, first, I think we have to get over this right click save idea. And yes, you can definitely right click save anything you want. I've done it. I've put them into Photoshops. I've reused them. I think it's important. I think it's one of the best features of the internet is right click save. So I'm totally in favor of that. But this other idea, if you think about a digital artist, if my friend who's like a painter, if he finishes painting a painting and he walks away, he's like, I'm putting no more paint on that painting. It is done. He has a painting that he can sell. It's pretty cool. But if you think about my friend Philippe, who's a digital artist, when he finishes one of his Photoshops, he doesn't have an original to sell. So this NFT gives him a way to kind of sell an original if he wants to do a one of one, or in the case of Curio Cards Plus and original Curio cards, to sell what we thought of as like digital signed prints. And you know how it is when, like, I mean, I can't afford original art, right? But sometimes I can afford a print, like a poster, and the person signed it and they number it, like 1 of 1,000 or whatever, 1 of 500, right? And it's kind of cool. It's like I own something that the artist touched. I have this connection now with the artist. And that's what the NFTs are, is they're kind of like collecting autographed books. Like I might never get to meet that artist or that writer, and sometimes they're even dead, but they've signed this book. And in that way, when an artist makes an NFT in this modern world, they're signing that print. So once people get into that idea where they're like, okay, I'm collecting his signature, and a lot of it, you have to be a super fan. You have to be capable of super fandom. Like, I mean, my favorite band is REM. So I collect REM stuff. I got posters and whatever, right? So if they put out some new REM NFTs, right? I'd have to buy them even if I don't know anything about NFTs. So just in that way, my friend was telling me about how he saw some art at like an art show. He's like walking by and he's like, for whatever reason, I like that mountain. And he talked to the artist, and the artist's like, yeah, if art's kind of that way. If you like it, you should probably buy it because that's the art that speaks to you. So for everyone else, once you get over that right click thing, which was, again, we've had this with Bitcoin. People had to get over the whole Bitcoin is for drugs or that kind of thing. We have these major stumbles, but once we get over those, I think it becomes a matter of finding the art that you like. Like if you look at these three pieces and you're like, okay, I like cartoons, I'm into that first one. I like abstract pieces. I like the second one. I like abstract pieces with color. I like the third one. And if you look at the original Curio card set, we had the parody logos, we had the original 1 through 10 pieces, and we had all these different types of art. And I think the same thing for NFTs. Maybe your favorite artist isn't into NFTs yet. Maybe your favorite football player isn't in yet, but they're going to get in. And when they get in and it flashes by your screen and it says, buy a Kiss icon, buy a Kendrick Lamar icon, buy a Weekend icon, whatever it's going to be, whoever your star is, I think it's going to be huge. So I think in this state, I think artists need to keep making more NFTs. Curio cards need to keep making more NFTs. And if we just make more and then just celebrate them, like give them to a friend if you find some cheap ones and get them started on a collection. Because it's just like when you were collecting cards, your friend didn't have a binder and he didn't have plastic sheets and a box full of cards when it started, right? You gave him some cards. So I think in that way, the friendliness of the community and the ability of lower priced cards to get people in, because it is a little like art collecting, is a little like print collecting. You do kind of get something for it sometimes. But yeah, it's all about the right art piece to the right person. So Eric, which art piece brought you into NFTs? Were you drawn by a crypto punk or a toad or a whale, or was there anything that caught
It
your
was
eye?
general. Yeah, no, dude, it was general awareness. There wasn't a specific piece, and I was aware of what was happening, and it wasn't it wasn't the money per se. Without mentioning the now cliched big outside sales, for me, I'm a writer, and so what I understood, and kudos to Rick, who's been, sort of my avatar into blockchain and crypto, period. But what I intuitively understood was here was a tool of empowerment. So for me, it was the paradigm shift of, wow, okay, content can be monetized. The project that I'm working on, not to show my stuff, but just to talk, since you asked, is I wrote a novel, and I can relate. Publishing is vicious now, even digital publishing, because it's dominated by Amazon and their sort of DK algorithm model. So for me, my thought process was, well, I have visual assets that are associated with the book. They have a life that exists separate from the book itself, as well as the content. And so NFTs are an opportunity for me to get that to an audience, because I think that's what every artist wants to do first and foremost. We all want to be embraced. We want people to see our work. But then also, here's a different way to monetize it. So that's the answer for me. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, man.
So I think unpacking what Tom says a little more. I think in the early days of Bitcoin, we all kind of remember that it was super hard to buy Bitcoin, to get on an exchange, and I think with NFTs, even though we're in wave 2.0, it's kind of the same thing. We're still nascent. I mean, there's only, depending on which numbers you listen to, 20,000, 50,000 buyers at the moment, but there's more people that want to buy than there are artists. Um, so I think we're still early. It's going to evolve. It's going to continue to get better. And then hopefully the artists themselves can also be rewarded. I don't mean to get like, people's rich. But if that happens too, that's also great. But I think it's just to get discovered, and especially since, in different parts of the world right now, people are still dealing with potentially COVID or lockdowns, this and that. And so it's really hard in this time to basically even try to get your work out there. And I think NFTs and Clubhouse and Twitter Spaces has given that medium for people to launch or to do side hustle or just to get by. Because I have other friends that are artists, and they basically said, yeah, before I was making, an okay living at displaying at galleries and then teaching art. And then with all the shutdowns, they can't teach art and nobody's going to galleries. So, now they're wanting to get into NFTs. And so, I hope that we can help them in some way. So back to you, E.
Yeah, and just to follow up, if your question, Thomas, is aesthetic, like where are my aesthetics? I'm like Emily Lazar, like not that what she does is the end all be all, but for obvious reasons, I see a parallel to what I'm trying to accomplish. And then there's an up and coming young artist of color named Light God. You should check him out. I dig his stuff. But there's so much stuff out there. I'm very humble. I'm not an aficionado, so I don't presume to sort of say, oh, this is the definitive piece. And I'm actually very, very loath to even mention, because I still feel like I'm learning, right? My aesthetic, it takes time to sort of develop an aesthetic. And I have tremendous admiration for everyone that's in the space. So I think that's a good way maybe to segue to the artist, because we're talking about art and sort of creative sensibilities. Max, yeah, I mean, since we're a small and concentrated group, and these are the best conversations. What's up? What's good? Let's hear where you are, where your headspace is. I'm operating under the presumption that everyone here is aware of who you are.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear your thoughts about what your experience is like journey from sort of origin story to where you are right now?
Oh man, yeah, I'll keep introduction short for sure. Yeah, so I have a background with fine art. I've been in Bitcoin since like pretty much day one, like command line days of Bitcoin. I have a background in making social engagement in art. So that was like the art that was most interesting to me when I studied it in school. So I'm actually, went to art school, studied fine art, was more drawn towards community interaction in art. That led me in 2007 to make my own currency system, and it became, yeah, I would say it was a pretty successful project. It led me into getting into to Bitcoin extremely early, but not as an investor. I found it out from a group of a group of friends that were sending this email list around, and yeah, it was pretty wild. I literally thought it was a joke, even after it was listed um, on the on the exchange. But anyway, yeah. So fast forward, I've worked on countless community crypto projects, um, and from different aspects, bounties and things like that. I've consulted in the space almost full time for about 3 years now, um, and yeah, with actually I work primarily with a product called Alien Worlds, um, and yeah, I work with different block producers on delegated proof of stake blockchains, and just heavily involved in the space. I'm really interested in how collectibles can be used in other methods, besides just setting them on the shelf and having friends check them out when they come over. I think the use cases of these things can supersede that type of collectible where they do provide ways of interfacing with different communities. Like, so if you look at like the game Alien Worlds, we have the most number used of NFTs out there. By far the most transfers for NFTs. I think we have around like 11 million in-game assets that are used, all of which are NFTs. Fee-less transfer. I think, yeah, I wish I had the exact number of players, but I'm guessing it's around like 300,000 daily users. It brings it up to the number one blockchain usage, probably more than any other blockchain, just that single game itself. At least daily users and number of transactions. So yeah, if you want to look at where NFTs are going, and definitely take a closer look at that. And the prime functionality of that game is to be this like didactic tool for teaching people about DAOs, and so it's a subversive method of how they got to that point. Because originally that company was making software for DAOs, and but it was one of these cart before the horse situations, very similar to Curio cards. Like, people weren't ready to accept it, and a couple other factors made it um, difficult for people to understand why it was so relevant at the time. But so these guys made a game, and in the game there's this type of token distribution event. You're mining these tokens, and then you can earn NFTs and earn these other tokens. But it's all to direct people to these concepts of decentralized autonomous communities, and how to leverage these multi-signature accounts to determine who should be allowed to access funds. And anyway, yeah, so that's what I'm just so grateful to be able to work on that, and bring a decade of knowledge to that project. And yeah, helping out with Curio Plus has been super rewarding, and yeah, it's just amazing to just to connect with these artists with Curio cards. Like, I never thought we would this would ever happen. It's truly like super bizarre. I've been waking up every morning and like, this is my reality, is like being a successful artist, and like I never thought that was possible. I mean, I have an art studio. I've ran an art studio for over a decade. But the type of art I do doesn't make money. It's like more engaging in a community. You're you're essentially teaching people like about art. You're having them do some artistic process, bridging the gap and making them feel part of part of being an artist versus being like, I'm an artist and you're not an artist, and here's something on a wall that you can't afford. And so I'm more interested in, making art accessible. And that's actually, it's literally a type of art, like social practice, social engagement. You can get a degree in them. You can get a master's degree in it now. So it's really cool to see how, these tools that make art making hyper accessible, in some ways is really awesome, and in other ways, changes the roles of what artists are now. And so I think making these things more accessible to the masses is the pinnacle of what it means to be an artist. Like how do you curate an experience versus say, well, what's up with this like weird pattern on the wall? It's like, well, that's expensive, and then that's where the conversation ends. It's much better when you are directing people making that weird pattern, and why, what is their experience in like being on the same level as the artist versus being separated from that artwork and being separated from the artist. So anyway, yeah, those are the themes I'm into. The direction of where this is going is really awesome. Truly honored and feel privileged to be part of this community.
Massive, man, massive. Sort of building on your point and also linking it to Thomas, I think in addition to the right click save as and what you were saying, there is such a need to teach people what art is, the centrality of art to our species. I'm talking about going back to the caves of Lascaux. So those huge iconic cave paintings, there were actually religious reference points, spiritual, sort of psychedelic. Everyone thinks that they thought, oh, they're just painting the animals. But now the latest understanding is that this was their large format sort of iconographic entertainment. But the function that it fulfilled was something central to affirming what it meant to be human. And to your last point, what's so sad to me is to see art reduced to art as product. It's gone through all these different permutations. Art as product through the Renaissance, you had to have patrons. You were still handmade into the church or rich people. And I think one of the most important things that you could do and everyone can do, hopefully through crypto, is to open people's eyes to their imagination, to the understanding of what art really is supposed to represent as a personal experience, and as a way to access an alternate reality. Daniel, your thoughts?
Thanks, everybody. Really interesting. So I'll give an intro, and then I'll give a thought on NFTs in general, and then talk about Curio. So my name is Daniel Friedman, and I'm a researcher and artist in California. So NFTs in general, so especially just all the perspectives people have been saying and what you'll hear elsewhere in the space, like it's exciting to think about how NFTs could play a role in different kinds of communities. And so that's art communities, which exist in the real world, believe it or not, as well as multimedia communities that include like images and then animations and games, and then also that kind of social and narrative art that Max was referring to. And then also beyond art, NFTs are going to have impact in areas like research and governance, and just so many areas we don't even know yet. So it's 2021. It's very early, and if people are creative and they see the opportunity, it's just interesting times. So that's the kind of general NFT note. Then for Curio, of course, only speaking for myself, despite moving the pen for the 2017 cards, 24, 25, 26, it's really a distributed community, like a blockchain. So that's what's so cool about the blockchain. There's the digital part, and then there's the community and the values part. And then that's cool to hear from the people involved in this project that includes like supporting artists of all kind. And then just to give like a personal note for why the supporting artists really matters. So I was, of course, very lucky to connect with the Curio team ever. And it's funny because I was so physically close I was living in Palo Alto, California, like a few train stops, literally going to the same bars in San Francisco as these Bitcoin meetups were, interested in the space and just didn't overlap. So that was 2017, where even to be in the space in terms of your behavior, you still might not cross paths with something that could be really important. And now it's really different. It hasn't been that long, so I'm just really grateful to the people who have already played a role in the Curioverse, and I wish this project and the community big success and ideas.
Very cool. Very cool. So we've got some people down in the audience, Miriam and C. Does anybody have a question? Does anyone want to sort of interact with amazing folks up here? And I would encourage everyone to take advantage of the opportunity to the greatest extent possible. Please, we want to make this robust and interactive. If you have a question,
I did invite them. I think they're a little shy, so I think if they just want to listen, they said.
Got it. Okay. All good. Fair enough. Well, I mean, it's a small band of folks who are obviously all familiar with each other. So I kind of defer to you on what you want to do with the time that we have.
Hey, Mary.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I just picked this up a little, like, not exactly at 12:30, so I may have missed a few things. But I had a question about, for Max and Daniel, like, I just love the contrast. They're both, like, such amazing pieces. What's your overall process creating those cards, or at least these very specific cards? What was your process doing it?
I could take that. So, oh man, the series that I made was called Marisol Vengus, and it's also a pseudonym, an alias, and it represents a lot of things for me. But the that project at the time started when I was in school, and I had some very significant difficulties in selling art and framing the type of art that I wanted to do, which was more community based and less hierarchical based, in a sense that the institution that I was part of, they would want us to have a certain show in a certain medium to demonstrate competency, but also to kind of show off what is being produced at at the school. So there was, I think I had some problems with that type of thinking, because with their model of information or their education, the way they would educate the students was based around you pick one of your mediums: sculpture, printmaking, drawing, painting, or electronic arts. That was a new one back then. And I'm like, wait a second, like, why would I go and like pick a medium and then put all my ideas into the medium, right? And I truly had a problem with that. So I started realizing, like, to be and I wanted to be an artist. Like, I really did. I went to school to learn that and how to be it. And then I found out that I'm like, oh, well, this is just part of being an artist. This isn't being an artist. This is not like the path to that. So I started working on ideas or working on projects where it was primarily an idea, and then I would pick the best tools for the job, versus the other way around. Like, here's the tools. Now you have to build stuff with those tools, the only tools you have. And I mean, that has it's important to study that way and learn that way as well. But anyway, so I started focusing on different types of art, and coming up with kind of my own mediums and my own processes of how to communicate these concepts. With that series in particular, and very specifically, it was one of my first projects where I got people doing tasks together, and one of them was like coloring in these buildings. The actual content is really irrelevant in this to me. It's more about the experience, this performative nature, this performative action of people doing things collaboratively and connecting through that process. So that's where that series comes from. I was kind of indifferent about what the actual imagery was. I'll just kind of say it again in other words. But the buildings were something like there's a large quantity of them I could find available on the internet. There's a large quantity of these like plants, and I came up with this algorithm to essentially how we could make these as a group. And so over a period of a few weeks, I produced the first body of work to of where people felt like they could come in, they could hang out at the coffee shop, they could color on some of these. Most people didn't care like about the greater vision or the greater thing. They just wanted to hang out and be part of something. And we would talk about like what art is or what it isn't, and and if someone asked, I would say, oh yeah, like this is part of like this algorithmic body of work that I'm creating, and so anyway, so I basically kind of crowdsourced the pieces of it, and with keeping in mind like at some point I would automate this process and make it somewhat autonomous, so I could just mass produce these things. So people were acting kind of like cogs in the wheel, and I acted more of like a stage director of sorts. And people come up with better ideas to color them in. So coloring them in was just one part of it. Figuring out how to print them out in a way where they weren't too saturated was another process. Finding materials was another process. All the way through assembly, and and then I had a bunch of other projects and other aliases in parallel. This wasn't like a major body of work or anything. But yeah, in that process that went on for about I think I did 6 versions over like approximately like one every year, or almost in some cases 2 a year. And I do coffee shop shows in where I live in Chico, and then also in San Francisco, and also in Portland, Oregon. And those became kind of these this decentralized entity show where the viewer was as much as a participant as the artist that created it. And I thought that was really an important theme back then to develop. In this latest series, I followed a lot of the same practices in making those. I had a group of people helping me out, but this time I paid them a lot of money, to, an hourly rate to actually produce these things. And throughout the process, we came up with some methods of determining what the best works were. And these are what was submitted to Curio Plus. So we objectively came up with a metric out of 116 pieces. I think originally it started out 133, and then we actually had to like remove some from the process that got destroyed. So I ended up with 116 individual works, and then to Curio Plus, we picked out a handful of them that we thought were objectively the best. And so that's what you see today. Anyway, that was really long-winded. Apologize for taking a long time, but there you go.
Thanks, Max. Pretty interesting. Didn't know about that detail with the subsetting. Well, I guess it makes sense because I knew that each one was a big finite set. So I guess this will be a little different perspective because the art for 32 was just hand drawn with pen on paper, and it's kind of a simple rules, complex outcomes situation, like trying to imagine what might have happened. I don't know what to draw. Okay, start with a little oval. Okay, more ovals, and then just adding more patterns, deciding whether it makes sense to stop at a certain radius or go all the way out to the full page, and then just, that's the fun thing about pen. You can't undo it, so either just stop or add a little more. So then it kind of looked like a mitochondria, which gave me the title, like the part of the cell. So that's just a little funny, probably subliminal or archetypal component, but yeah, it's a hand drawing.
Yeah, I got a question for you, Daniel. How does your research influence your artwork, or vice versa? Like, how has your artwork influenced your research?
Great question. I would ask the same of you. So the first thought, that was always an interesting area to explore, like art and science, and they meet in so many different ways. One area that was really fun to think about and probably influenced a lot is like thinking about the scientific writing, like prose. People write, that's art, poetry, and prose, novels, fiction, etc. And then the figures are like images, and they have numbers. And in the open science ecosystem, people are talking about making NFTs of papers now and making the NFT of the figure. But even before this whole technology enabling that, it's kind of like the space between what's a scientific graphic and what's an art piece is blurry. Really old science textbooks and stuff, the alchemy and the geometry and the natural history, just really beautiful art. So it's a super fun area to explore. And yeah, I'm curious on what anyone else thinks, but it's a cool area between science and art.
You should call it the eukaryotic drop. I love it.
Nice.
I mean, just hearing what you guys are saying makes me think so much about the nature, once again, the nature of how art is interfacing with us as a species. The velocity of content that's out there. It very much feels like art is now a process more so than an end product. And I think maybe that's another conceptual disconnect for a lot of people, above and beyond the right click save as. I think, and maybe to some extent, I'm guilty of this. There are people who demographically or just psychographically are conditioned to think of, okay, there's the end product. It's on the wall. It's on the pedestal. And it's very challenging to think about an algorithmically generated, collaboratively created, constantly evolving thing. I mean, I'm down and I'm into it, but I think that might be that therein lies the opportunity. But I think for a lot of people, that might be something that is hard for them to kind of connect to. Not that it's a problem. I have no stance on it. It's going where it's going to go. But I'm fascinated by it. But I wonder if that's a challenge.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, we're I try not trying to speak in like blanket terms, but we've as a society we move towards product driven culture. I really believe we inherit the characteristics of our environment and the mediums we consume. So if you go to the store, you see a bunch of shit on some shelves, and you see that day in and day out. Like, you start taking on a lot of those properties and what you think is like socially acceptable and what is what you think is okay. And I think that causes some problems, especially when you're trying to communicate themes that are beyond just stuff for sale. And as an artist, I struggled with it. I mean, I've had to make choices where I'm like, do I just make pretty things that I put over people's fireplaces that match their whatever, or do I am I trying to optimize for more like philosophical output where I deal with these major themes in society? And I think there can be a balance if you're really lucky. I mean, I've had so many people contact me like, "What is your art about?" I was extremely drawn to it. I've had art collectors come to me and say, "Hey, I did a deep dive in this Curio series, and you're an artist. You're like legitimately an artist. Like, I want to know more about your process." And I'm like, "Holy crap! Like, this is like insane to actually have people ask me about my art. Like, this is amazing that I can be here and share some of these more complex themes that I've been dealing with, because I'm not just trying to sell stuff. Like, I've made specific works that talk about that and deal with economy and making my own currency as a parody of and things like that. I've gone down those paths, but ultimately I want to make art have an impactful lesson that people are going to perpetually think about And I want to make things that add value to people's lives that go beyond just something that, is based on stimulation. Like they get a certain reaction out of it and then that's it. It's like, no, I don't want to just make stuff. Like that's kind of like the downfall of society when everyone's just buying things because of some stimulation they're getting off of it. Like want to, add perpetual value in other ways. So.
Can I give a thought because that was really interesting, Max? And great question too. How does conceptual art become made accessible? And first, I just wrote down like reality. Almost all conceptual art fails to have impact or value because we don't hear about the 99% of local artists and truly throughout all of history. So that's why it's really lucky and important for those who do have that kind of visibility. And then Max brought up the point about how there's a movement from the artistic to the commercial. So even putting aside all these failed conceptual art projects, it's kind of like Warhol and the Campbell soup and painting going from like a craft in a previous time or just an integral part of life to something that becomes commercialized and then also becomes like ephemeralized, like turned into vapor in a digital sense. And then I was thinking, wow, that is kind of a concept that not everybody will get at the same time or the same way. But then one way to think about it is like the NFTs, it's just an acronym, ATM, NFT, it's just 3 letters. And then in the context of the changes that are going to happen for Web3, it's going to give new ways to talk about the value, identity, privacy. So a lot of people are unhappy with Web2 and certain platforms. And then there'll be new platforms that will have not just like plain NFT swapping and trading. That's the market for sure. That's what we have. But all the stuff people are talking about and that I really hope that this project and other projects can build, which is like an accessible entry point, because it'll make sense. You don't need to know the smart contract if it makes sense that it's a ticket to a conference. So then that will just make sense. It'll be part of a bigger picture that also includes the thoughts of Max and so many other artists who we'll hear from in the future.
Yeah, definitely.
Daniel,
a lot
do you think
unpack.
that? Sorry, go ahead, man.
No, I said definitely a lot to unpack and 100% agree. So I think we're all still early, and as different utilities come upon, us, and we're involved with it, I think it's a very exciting time. But also with art, getting back to art, I think the other thing too that, whether it's digital art or a piece of music, I mean, you look at it and it brings out, or a book, I mean, it brings out a feeling or an emotion, and it can make you very happy, or some pieces make you very sad or make you think, and that, I think that's priceless. And so, and I love that part of the journey, because I used to be an artist but retired now, so I used to do photography, and hence the nickname. And so I respect the artist because I know how hard it was, because I did it for over a decade, and made very little money from it. It was very, I mean, I did get published, but a lot of times, people say, oh, we want your piece, and sometimes it's $100. Very rarely was it $1,000, but it certainly couldn't pay rent.
Yeah, another thing that I truly I love about the NFT space is that just being able to bring friends into it and teach them how to make their own NFTs and give those out in their community, just leverage their their community value, and and that's ultimately why any of these crypto tokens or NFTs have any value, is that it's a representation of the actual value within those communities. So I've onboarded dozens of artists to mint their own NFTs just to give out as rewards and prizes, and just thank yous to their existing patrons, and they love it. Like they start asking more questions, like, oh, could I use these for this, or could I make an art piece with NFTs that turn on the artwork when the patron's near it or something. Like I'm getting there's so many more ideas that I've never could have thought of unless I introduced these into artists. So but yeah, it's the theme that I was going to address is just like the the media running with like the high ticket items almost distracts from the potential or the possibility of like where this could go in society. And it comes up in small group settings like this, like, oh man, like we know there's potential, we know there's like major use cases of this, but that doesn't come to the foreground. It's still that like that base level sensory response to the dollar amount of like, oh yeah, these were sold for all this. And it's just that's really frustrating to me. And I get pinged every day about someone like, oh, do you see this NFT? It's sold for this or sold for that. I'm like, oh man, there's so many other things to talk about there. But yeah, it's kind of a problem in some ways, but it also introduces people that high ticket value. Introduces people into the concept, and certain percentages go down the rabbit hole and extend the functionality of these NFTs, and where they could end up.
Sadly, that is the currency. Sort of double reference there to in our society. I mean, if you want to get people's attention, it's the ticket price, or how many people watch the Netflix show. Everyone's going crazy about Squid Game, which is an interesting entertainment, but the reason why it's getting all this attention is because the numbers that it's holds. So I think again, therein lies the challenge, therein lies the opportunity. It feels to me like the work that you're doing, Max, is so important. There needs to be more proselytization of people who don't know. Do you have like sort of a set process for onboarding people, or does it vary depending upon where they are in their understanding? Have you kind of developed a methodology on it?
Yeah. For NFTs for sure. I mean, I've onboarded people to crypto since like as soon as we got away from command line on Bitcoin, like so as soon as those first desktop wallets came out, I was like onboarding people there, which was an absolute nightmare. I lost most of their funds and all sorts of other terrible things. But I started getting successful onboarding. Actually, I haven't been successful too much with Ethereum. I've gotten very few people on there. I've given like dozens and dozens of lessons, serious long lessons on how to use it, but I wouldn't say those were successful. Most of the success is around those like delegated proof of stake blockchains. It's just super easy to go on. You don't need to have the token to send out the token, so you can actually have someone else delegate resources to use on those accounts. And then with NFTs onboarding, the most success I've had isn't on Ethereum. Once again, it's mostly with Wax blockchain, where it can provide people claim links to give them a free NFT, and it doesn't cost them anything to receive it. They set up an account for free, so I think the future of where things are going, you won't have these unreasonable expectations of the user to like have to have the token to receive another token, and like a lot of these are just based on more developer preferences, I feel like, than actual user needs. So yeah, I think that's where I found success in onboarding users is these I would say they're like third gen or fourth gen blockchains. They're more a lot lighter on the user. It doesn't take as much of a demand for them to understand what's going on.
And what the obvious reasons behind the Ethereum issue, like sort of the price and other challenges? Why such a low yield there?
The price. I think people have a lot of fears to having responsibility in holding their own funds. I mean, the gas is like the biggest obvious one. I've seen a lot of people mess up a couple times and they just don't get on it ever again. Like I've seen people send NFTs to like Coinbase accounts, or like there's just all sorts of like horror stories there that are deter people from regular usability. I really think you have to be in a certain technical space to be able to utilize Ethereum-based blockchains, and I mean even Bitcoin too. It's getting easier, but yeah, had a lot of difficulty there.
Was in a spaces yesterday, somebody talking about something to your point about making mistakes in the Toad community had bought a piece for 50 ETH. Don't know where they got the money. Wanted to sell it for 125. Made a mistake and listed it at 12.5 ETH. Somebody else actually bought it in the Toad community. Said, "Hey, no, you didn't mean to do this. Here it is." Gave it back to them. But that's, I'm sure, a rarity.
Yeah, oh man. Yeah, I mean there's other stories I've heard about people sending an insane amount of Ethereum, and then the block producer who picked it up just like sent it back to them like, yeah, you didn't mean to do that. So there's good souls and in the space for sure.
Those are good stories. Daniel, I think you were going to say something. We're not. But what if again? I have this E-Day fix on for my own interest. People that are complete neophytes that aren't, they're interested. They won't admit that they are because they're afraid of being made to feel ignorant. How do we get these people? People that literally don't. They're technologically capable. They're financially capable, but they're not engaging. What is the way forward there?
Yeah, I don't know if I have the secret sauce to that, but I think.
Oh, go ahead.
I think as their friends are getting into it. So, like, when Tom was saying about whether it's, baseball cards or records or sneaker collections, if they hear about it and say, hey, can you tell me about this? And it's sharing and, being able to get in an entry. So, when you're buying something, it's not, oh, it's $2,000 to get in. It's $150, which, these days, when back in the day when you went to school and you bought a pair of, let's say, Stan Smiths, they used to be like $20, and now it's almost $100. But it's just, money's not worth what it used to be, and hence getting into crypto. But also, I think it's actually flipped to NFTs in Wave 2.0 are getting people into NFTs, but also getting people into crypto quickly. Because they want to get NFTs, so they have to use crypto. Although, there's some platforms now that are allowing credit cards and whatnot. So I think it's still going to take time, but we're still very early. So I think, probably by 2022, still in Wave 2.0, that things will happen quicker and more organically. But it's a very exciting time to be here. But it's still going to take time, and there's still going to be different iterations. But sorry to interrupt you, Max. I'll give the mic back to you.
Oh no, that got me going down an interesting path. Though. No, I'm glad you said that. There's so many comical things about this time of like, well, when is it, when are people going to find out about this? Like, there's some funny things there. So when people are talking about these things, like we're talking about these things, I feel like there's this analogy of like we're talking about like the pipe fittings to the underground workings of a city. Like we're talking about like the copper pipes, or like the lead, they use to solder the pipes together. We're talking about the brand of the company that made the pipes, and like the end users like isn't going to care and doesn't care. So I think that's how far we are away. So if we start seeing things where like, your punch card that you use to get your coffee with, that gives you like when you buy the 12 free coffees, get a free coffee. When that becomes like an app, and we don't even think of it as being NFTs, but we're still benefiting from those pipes underground. Like if you take it apart and you're an engineer and you're like, oh yeah, they're using NFT technology for that. Like I feel we're at that phase where we're transitioning to building actual scaffolding for the city, we're still like, burying the pipes and figuring out like what are the optimal things to put through them and how that works. I feel like we're, in some regard, we're really close to building that city and starting to not even think about how the pipes work. I mean, most of us don't even know what material the pipes are made out of. That's how much infrastructure has been built in our society. We don't even know how engines work. We don't even. I mean, some people do. Some of us nerds for sure. But so I think we're at that level. We're going to see it like it's going to be quick. We'll see NFTs for sure be the first use case of crypto mass adoption. It's not going to be in payments. I mean, it's kind of given at this point. Just seeing like the actual number of users that use NFTs in games versus the actual number of users that are sending crypto payments, it's kind of a joke. It's like 1000x or something. Like it's way more. So I think, it just takes time, but I think we'll see mass adoption. Definitely, next, like Rick was saying, next a year, 2 years, like we're going to see some really crazy unexpected use cases, and those will probably be the first use case. Daniel was talking about research using NFT. We'll see unexpected, unexpected paths there for sure.
No, absolutely. I think unpacking more what you're saying is it's kind of like in the early days when people, were getting on the internet and they're like, nobody's going to put their credit card on the internet. And the app store, there was one or two apps, and like, who's going to want to use an app? What is an app? And now you don't even think about it. And so at some point, it's going to be the technology is going to go away or be buried. You're not going to maybe even use the term NFT. It's just going to be it's art, it's a collectible, it's cards, or it's for gaming, or it's a utility for verification or identity and other things that we can't even think of because innovation just happens so quickly. So that's why it's exciting. But at times for us, we've been in it for a little bit. You're just kind of waiting for the next steps. But in the meantime, it's also a lot of fun, and there's challenges. It's all the above.
Can I add a thought on that? Is my microphone back?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think also related to making NFTs accessible and keeping an open mind for what they can do, it's like we can focus on what they do and what outcomes they lead to. Like this is just a high integrity supply chain, or this is a paper with a pre-registered hypothesis. And then the technological details, it's a rabbit hole because it's on a computer and you can go all the way to the processor. It's like very technical. So it's always going to be layers that we just don't personally understand. And then giving out NFTs, especially if there's an infusion of attention into the space, giving out a tenth, we pay more in taxes. So giving out a small amount and giving back like so many community participants and artists do is like a huge part of the total hopeful ethos, and that will bring people in as well.
Well, one of my thoughts way back in the day, when we were first making MP3s on the command line, is that MP3s were amazing, and I was like, how can we get MP3s to everyone? And I'd go around telling people how they could compress their WAV files to MP3s, and you could store 10 CDs on one CD, and what amazing technology it was. But none of that actual evangelism or anything like that worked. And we all thought, we were like, well, maybe we need a player, like a little iPod, a little like player thing. Maybe we need a desktop player like iTunes. Maybe we need Napster where people could share music. Maybe we need iTunes music sales. Maybe we need Spotify streaming music. But it turns out it was all of these things at the same time, and everyone just accepted MP3. And no one talks about it anymore. They don't talk about piracy or any of those things. They just download it from iTunes. You do Apple Music, or you do Spotify or Amazon Music, or whatever your service is, and you just get music as a service now, and everything changed. So in the same way with NFTs, I don't know that we can really go to our cousin's house and say, you need to buy these collectibles, or go to our friend at work and be like, have you bought your, new CryptoPunk yet? Do you have your icon set? Like, it's not really going to be that kind of a thing. I think that, like with the art, when people see something that they need, they'll figure out how to get it. Like recently, Topps, the classic baseball card company, started selling baseball cards on wax. And, you know, I'm computer literate. I know how to use things, but I didn't know how to use wax, right? I had to go learn and read a couple files and send some stuff around and make mistakes and learn things like everybody else. But the reason that I went out there and learned wax is because I saw these baseball cards and I was like, I got to try those out, you know, digital baseball cards. So it just has to hit that chord with people where, you know, maybe the pixel art didn't get them, but maybe they're into Tron and somebody comes out with Tron type pixel art and they're like, "Oh, that's the thing I have to have." And that will cause them to learn about it. And the other way it'll happen is the way things are happening now with Bitcoin and the Lightning Network. If you look at a program like Strike or Cash App, you don't know that you're using Bitcoin, right? The rails of you sending around payments is not your concern as a user. But behind the scenes, Lightning Network, Bitcoin, NFTs, all these things are happening. And you're just playing some video game and you're collecting swords. And then pretty soon you can use the swords in the new version of the video game. And ideally, opposing video game groups will start using the same NFTs, the same property for different things. Maybe if you have Curio cards 1 through 5, your character is invincible for 3 seconds. You know, stuff like this where the overlapping usage for these things, because no one really owns these digital signatures once they're out there. If you want to say you need a card 32 to get into my chat room, you can do that, you know, and you don't even have to be the owner or the creator of card 32. You can just say this signature is required if you want to chat. So I think stuff like that, where it overlaps, where a ticket stub from a concert gives you a superpower in a video game, or a song that you downloaded gives you the ability to get a Curio card or a baseball card or something that relates to the song. It's that cross connections that we haven't seen yet. Everybody's built their own little silos, but they're not overlapping yet.
Oh man, and yeah, just to add on to that, and I've said this a few times in different instances, but we've seen like different types of collectors, like in the real world. You know, you have some collectors that are like, think about like the kids on the playground. You had kids that are like have the binders and they like, you know, they show everyone their collection. They're like showing off stuff. They'll trade with you if you got something good. But then you see other kids that are like making their own Go Fish games, or they're making their own like gambling, like child casino type style games on the playground. And I think that's like the fun and excitement of you know, thinking about what these NFTs can do, right? So you have some people that are like, you know, for sure curios are going in museums. Back in March, even I mentioned it to one of my friends who's on the board at a local museum, and she said, "Oh man, we got to get the school to see if we can accept these, and like we want to put them in the museum." And I'm like, "Whoa, like all right, let's do it." It was a little more complicated than that, but you know, for sure, curios will be in museums, like undoubtedly for sure. The other type of collector, you know, rather than just preserving it and having it as like something to show off, or just because you enjoy it, you know, is the type of collector that wants to use it for like additional functionality or come up with some community gain. And I think we're going to see lots of unforeseen examples of this. And it's a pattern that comes up in crypto. I mean, if you've been in the game for a while, so to speak, you will see that you make a crypto and it's out there, it's on a public network. You're going to see it pop up on random decentralized exchanges, on swapping services, and like it has unexpected consequences, you know, because anyone can tap into it. We'll see that with popular crypto projects. You'll see like, you know, these, we've already seen it. We've on regular Curio, people got these kind of like scammy drops, like what? Like go to this site and like click on this, and you know, we see a lot more type of scam things than normal drops. But I mean, it just attests to that concept that you see these unexpected use cases of individuals trying to leverage the network effect of that community.
Well, and I think that not to call them scam things, but promotional opportunities are another important part of NFTs. Just recently, DC Comics has said at their new convention they're going to give out millions of NFTs. And obviously, you're saying, those are going to be commons. They're not going to be worth anything. But just like anything else, they're smart people. They put a golden ticket in there, right? There's a couple of those NFTs that are really valuable. And as a promotional opportunity, of course, you'd open up a wallet or an application or whatever they're looking for. You get your ticket, you get some free collectible cards. If you're lucky, you win the auction, you get the golden card. Maybe it's worth money. Maybe you just feel good that you have a really cool collectible item. And I think that kind of thing, promotions, not, fine art is great. And I support that as a usage and avatars and other things like that. But if DC is giving them out and then the other conventions are giving them out and then the concerts are giving them out, and pretty soon your OpenSea looks like kind of like what your Facebook used to look like, an image of your life where you're like, I went here, I saw this band, I collected this thing for a while. I was into, magic cards. Then I got into baseball. Then I got into football. I got into other cards, Star Trek, all kinds of things. So I think that kind of, these little stubs, like they all used to be ticket stubs and I kept them. I think they're cool when I go to a movie or a concert or anything like that. I've pretty much got the stub. But the digital stub, it's not just a collectible, it could also be a key or something to let you into some content. So I think that kind of mixing it up, cross promotion is the way to go.
No, along with what you're saying about, NFTs now, it's on crypto Twitter where they're saying it's the new blue check mark or green check mark. So
basic human needs have always been the drivers of mass adoption. We were talking about it earlier, like indoor plumbing, water, heat, light. To your point, Thomas and Rick, I think absolutely. This is my take on it. As an outsider who's looked at other industries and looked at the adoption, working in music, working in film, I think consumer staples will be the things that probably drive a lot of the infrastructure. Collecting, DC comic NFTs, things that are related to really prosaic shit like food away from home, apparel, gas, personal care products,
what about
commodities, entertainment, prosaic shit, and then hopefully that will scale so that the more exotic, interesting, high value cultural artifacts can have a bigger base of people to consume them. But I think what will drive adoption will be those very, sort of prosaic things.
Yeah, so going along with what Parker said and Eric said, you're both right. So in Italy, Peroni Beer is using NFTs to verify their supply chain. And also in Australia, they're using NFTs to prove organic food's authenticity now.
Yeah, a lot of what's happening is that NFT, the little initialism that somebody came up with, has kind of taken the place of altcoin. And we used to talk about it back in the day. Andreas Antonopoulos would tell me about it. He would say that pretty soon the whole playground is going to have coins. There'll be Freddie Coin and Johnny Coin and Joey Coin. And Joey is the most popular kid on the playground, so his coin is the most valuable, and it trades at 2-1 for Johnny Coin. So this kind of everyone having their own coin. And then it goes a little further where you're like, and we thought about some of these ideas when we were working on ideas for the original Curio cards, things like navigation programs or leaving behind a coin. Like instead of me taking a ticket stub from a concert, maybe I leave a stub at the concert saying that I was there. And then people are like kind of collecting it. They're like, I was at a concert that other guy was at, and he's really cool. And maybe eventually we go to enough concerts together, there's this like synergy between our tokens where we both go to the same kind of concerts. And then the computer is like, I could recommend you more concerts that this guy goes to. And then we're getting kind of a geographical recommendation. So I think things like that, thinking about personal coins, and also just thinking about the infinite nature of these coins. They are just signatures. We can always make new strings of signatures. We can make, new collections. We can make new blockchains to store them on. So there's all kinds of opportunities here.
I have one short thought, Thomas, is, you said this is like what we refer to when we're talking about altcoins now. And I just thought, coin is a metaphor, not even just altcoin, like Bitcoin. So it's digital interactions, it's transactions, ledger tech, identity. So we're so early in the long arc of digital transactions that it's just cool to see what art is doing.
Yeah. Technical question for everyone here, please. So clearly, everyone saw what happened with China cracking down on mining and crypto. I look at it as of a piece with their desire to become the world's dominant reserve currency and control the financial system. What do you guys think about that? I mean, obviously that has to have impacted pricing, but I don't think this has happened a lot. I don't think this is just like a one time thing. This feels different. Do you guys agree? Disagree? What are your thoughts?
Oh man, I mean, I've thought this for a while. I think they're just trying to manipulate the price to get some of that delicious, sweet crypto on the cheap.
So it's a play to hoard supply. You don't see it as a strategic move to actually control or limit crypto because it's something they can't control by its very nature.
I think they're just trying to get more of the supply.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah, they've done that so many times. Like, I mean, I can think of, more than a dozen times you'll see it in the news. Like, they ban it, they do this, they do that, but then it's like what? Like, are they? This is a press release. Like, what's going on here, guys? It's I don't know. I don't want to say this.
Let me ask a related question, and maybe Thomas, you know more about this because I know you talked about it on your show, like with the country's adoption of Bitcoin. So, which countries, or what will we see in terms of legal adoption of currency like Bitcoin, DAOs like the Wyoming DAO LLC in the U.S., and then like NFTs for any use? It will just be like really interesting. There's just a big ecosystem of digital possibilities. So I'm curious, what do people think, like in that kind of those three or other pieces, like coins, currencies, DAOs, NFTs?
Well, I think all of these governments and other people resist adopting these things because it means they could lose some of their power. And if you look at the situation in China, a lot of what they're doing is clearing the way for the digital yuan. They want that to be a big success. They've got the 50th or 100th anniversary or something like that of the Chinese government over there, and they've got a lot riding on that. So the same thing when you look at the US and other developed countries, they don't have a reason to go to Bitcoin to give up their power of money printing. So what we do have adopting Bitcoin, and this is a major change. For a long time, we didn't have any countries that we could say are even considering this, but El Salvador and now Brazil, some of what unfortunately, I would say are kind of weaker countries or developing countries, have adopted Bitcoin pretty much out of kind of desperation. They don't have a lot of other good options. So there might be some benefits to Bitcoin, but they also didn't have anything else going on either. So this is way better than their current system. So again, with everything else, it's going to be a matter of need. And no one likes to talk about this, but if the entire economic house of cards come down, they're going to turn to Bitcoin because it'll still be there. But I think in the short term, we're mainly going to see governments resisting Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, DAOs, printing cards, all the things that they could do. They're going to resist because they don't have control over them. So they're going to try to make their own controlled version. And after that fails with a great deal of fanfare, like the Facebook coin, Libra, or whatever it's called, they'll turn around. They'll say, wow, that Bitcoin thing's still there. Even though we ignored it, even though we copied it, even though we said it was illegal, even though we did all those things, it's still there. So I think we could still win in the end, but it's still a lot of ground to get there.
The governments and the moneyed interests that run them have absolutely no incentive to move in this direction. They have every incentive to do what they're doing. And it's interesting. I moved to Colombia in 2019. There's a an emerging community here. I think the places where you're going to see the biggest growth are in South America, poorer countries in Asia, and then eventually in Africa, precisely because there's a need, as you said, Thomas, and there's no dominant infrastructure blocking people from using it. And also, people don't trust financial institutions in those places the way that they do in the United States. And other developed countries.
Well, there's so many people that are unbanked. We don't really have a concept of it here in the United States, but El Salvador, many people there just don't have a bank account. So if they get a Bitcoin account or a Lightning account, and suddenly they can hold a little bit of currency and not El Salvadorian currency or Colombian or Venezuelan or any of those kind of currencies. Sorry, not Colombia, but mainly Venezuela. High inflation currencies where let's say you get paid, $200 on Friday. If you don't spend that by Monday, it's worth $100, right? You're losing an incredible amount of your purchasing power because of this runaway inflation. Whereas if you were able to save that money in something like Bitcoin or Lightning, which again have their own forces and move up and down, at least you wouldn't be subject to inflation, which just keeps getting worse all the time.
Fascinating, amazing. And the thing for me that just the final piece on China, I was born in Taiwan and I'm a diplomatic kid and I have a personal interest in this a little bit, but I also don't think it's a coincidence that this happens at the same time that they're ratcheting up pressure on Taiwan. I think these are all the piece of a strategy to sort of torture test and stress test the U.S. and the West. This is definitely a strategic counter move to the Anglo-Australian U.S. maneuver. But I think they look at currency as another military option as well. And I don't think it's a coincidence that you're seeing them move things with Taiwan to the worst place that they've been in 40 years at the same time that they do. This is all a part of an integrated strategy. And I think it's very important to think in those terms as well, as much as I love a lot of the utopian idealism that's in this space. I think it's essential not to become divorced from geopolitical reality because it's going to impact the space regardless.
No, absolutely. I think the other thing too, though, with Taiwan, so if you really think about, what companies and what countries really produce chipsets or rare earth metals, if you look at chipsets, it's only three. It's South Korea, Taiwan, and the U.S. That's it. So that's the other additional piece that makes Taiwan, aside from the people aspect, the culture aspect, also invaluable because you go, whoever controls that, you can control the world down the road. It's just like probably down the road, water is going to be worth more than gold. 20 years from now or maybe earlier, don't know. But right now, it's rare earth metals and chipsets and things, those kind of things, battery power. So it's a very interesting time. And, with crypto and NFTs, I think we can do so much good and hopefully do more good than, some of the other things that are, that can happen. So you never know. I mean, because it's like open source. People can do all kinds of things, and but very positive and very hopeful.
Indeed. What do you guys think? You guys feel like we've covered some good landscape? You want to keep rolling, or what are your thoughts?
No, I think we've covered some really good landscape. I think it's really good. I don't know if anybody else has
what are the next,
or any
final
steps?
points. Yeah. What are the next steps here for anyone involved?
Well, I think it's basically making more people aware of this because one of the things that a lot of people don't know about was originally we were scheduled to release Curio Plus earlier, but we actually pushed it back purposely out of respect to Curio cards to not take away buzz from Christie's. So, unlike other drops that we've worked on, this is NFTV Miami, normally, you have a couple weeks to lead up to it, and you're doing PR, you're doing everything else. Where here, we just turn it on like a light switch, and we're doing a drop. So because of that, I think it's going to take more work and a little bit more time than to, sell out in a week. If it happens that way, it's great. But, even with really good communities, a lot of times it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort. So, really appreciative of everybody involved. And also, if you could help, bring in other people to our community, whether it's on Discord or Twitter or whichever social medias you work on, I think it's really important. So I think it's kind of setting expectations. It's going to take time and effort. And I think we've done a great deal considering we just turned everything on basically last night or early this morning, some things at 4 a.m. So
you guys have done an amazing job. I'm a fan. I will definitely broadband this to everyone that I know. And these are people that are early on the adoption curve. That's why so many of my questions were weighted that way. And in terms of specific action steps, my recommendation was you guys should do a Twitter space. Definitely, you should do a Twitter spaces, maybe bi-weekly. And this may feel low amplitude, but Facebook has video rooms. I mean, I'd say evangelize to people that know absolutely nothing. It will be excruciating. It will seem pointless at first, but I think there's so much more upside there than almost anywhere else. And it's congruent with a lot of the things that you guys have said, and it would certainly help. So if I can be helpful with either of those, let me know.
Yeah, I think the important thing with Curio Plus going forward is that, while on one hand, I want to say everyone should go out and buy the cards. Obviously, I got my own set and I'm good now. But that's the first thing. But the second thing is that we have a mission here where we can now say artists welcome. We're looking for new artists. We're looking for people who haven't done an NFT, people who've done an NFT, people who want to do more NFTs, people who want to do art and that understand that, they contribute some art to this. We promote them, they promote us, back and forth. It creates this circle of goodwill where everyone can benefit, this virtuous circle. And I think we need to create that. So artists welcome, like send us your artists to the Discord. People should start, instead of saying like, what's the cheapest card to buy in the Discord, which is a very popular topic at other places. I'd like to see people saying, what is your new art piece? What are you working on? Sharing sketches, sharing ideas, and all with the goal where you can have this goal now. I can say, we're making new Curio cards and you, artists, can be on them. So I think this is a fantastic message. This is a new positive message of creation and expansion and not just stagnancy and just sitting there with the same 30 cards forever. Like, you can be a part of this project. You could be the next Robeck who, like I say, started out in the chat doing, pencil art and just sketches and funny stuff. And then he ended up making those really nice pieces, 21, 22, and 23. And then that later led to all of his other great NFTs, his support of the NFT community, and just people like that. So we're looking for artists now. We have like your friend, your cousin, your roommate, all those people. Like, and again, it's going to take a long time. I mean, even if we do one card a piece for every artist in the world, that's a lot of time. But that's what we have now. We have a thing that can make more things. So we're no longer stagnant. We no longer have to just say, what's the cheapest card? What's the best card to buy? We have a new mission here and a mission to spread art. So I think it's a nice positive mission.
No, absolutely. I think unpacking that a bit more, it's on our site and it's in our ethos, which is from day one that, we want to continue helping lesser known or unknown artists. That basically we're going to run it's going to be launched, in the near future, but we're going to have so that on our Discord, you put in your NFT art and then it's by the community on Discord to upvote it. And so the top 3 vote getters will get to do 1 card each in the set, number 58, number 59, number 60. And so, you'll get discovered. You'll also be, assuming, you sell, that you also will be financially rewarded, and we'll help you because, we have the Curio Card OG artists you can get advice from. We have other people in the community. And so it's going to be much more rewarding and full circle than just talking about floor prices.
Yo, Thomas, I'm giving you props, man. I'm watching you right now on World Crypto Network where you're interviewing Roback. That's dope, dude.
Yeah, I've got some great
That's a
series
hilarious
over
interview.
there with all the Curio artists that I could get interviews with. And the most recent one with Luis just launched this morning. So check those out on the World Crypto Network. Yeah.
Again, prosaic recommendation to broadband to a bigger audience. And if you've already done this, please forgive me. Have you stripped and ripped pieces of this onto Facebook and other platforms that aren't as trafficked by you know that are trafficked by people that are much lower on the information curve?
It's you're welcome to take some clips from that. Basically, we make the big shows and we just try to keep going forward, making big shows. Sometimes they do go out to other platforms. Like right now, if everything worked well, we are broadcasting on Facebook, Twitter, a couple of YouTube channels, and maybe Twitch. There's one guy watching us on Twitch. He's the only one. Yeah, so we try to put out on different platforms, but it is difficult with the clips. Can be very time consuming. But yeah, they're out there. It would be great to do some clips and just to spread the word. I'm not sure.
I did
don't know.
repost the full episode on Facebook, just so you know. I mean, earlier today.
Yeah,
Oh, you
that's
already
great.
posted it?
Yeah.
Well, I reposted the one that, with Crypto Pop. Unfortunately, Crypto Pop couldn't join us, but maybe he stayed up too late because I was talking to him, 5-6 hours ago, and it's 3:30 now, 4:30 ish, or a little bit past his time in the morning, so in the Philippines.
Good stuff, man. This is great.
Very, very cool. I mean, for an inaugural kickoff, it's been fabulous. I know people popped in and out. But very, very excited, very, very stoked to continue forward and, just feel blessed with the great people we're working with, and E for helping us, Eric.
I'll step up. Thank you for letting me just be here. Great value for me. I will step up to a commitment. I know two artists that are adjacent to the space who are gifted. I'm making my commitment right now to you, Rick, that I will get them in touch with you because I think they would be worthwhile. And
Awesome.
they already have great work. They just need to be brought through. Again, that's where I can add value, right? I can't add value in places where you guys are already strong, but I'm gonna talk to my friends Wendy and Iona for sure.
Okay. Well, I think it's all of us, knowing different people, spreading the word and the joy and the fun, and then also having the ability to stand on each other's shoulders, making all of us stronger.
Well, and we need everybody's art style in this. You were saying earlier, how are we
Absolutely.
going to get different people and what kind of people? They just got to see the right art, the right card that grabs them, and then they'll get interested in this. I know for a long time I wanted, like minority people to be into Bitcoin and crypto. And recently, Lamar, my friend Lamar, has launched the Black Bitcoin Billionaires. And they just have a fantastic clubhouse here. And every time I'm on a clubhouse, I want to promote them. But they're so great. And I think that everyone needs that for their own group, for their own collection. So if you're into baseball or sailboats or race cars or whatever you're into, that's going to draw you and that's going to drag you into crypto and then into NFTs and all these things. So just making more art, making more cards, I think just expands everything and it just gets bigger. We get more people involved, more people trading and having fun. And then eventually, hopefully they'll make their own cards too. So.
Fantastic.
Very cool. Well, thanks so much. I think we're going to wind this down, and it's been amazing. Look forward to many more to come.
Thanks. It was great to meet everyone here. Absolutely, just a huge value add for me, and I'm a supporter, down to help however I can, man.
Very cool.
Thanks for the facilitation, Eric. See you all later.
Thanks so much.
Great chatting,
All right.
everyone.
Bye.
See you guys